Hello everybody and welcome to this video. It's another in the Student Exemplar series, today looking at a very good answer to a Merchant of Venice question based on an extract from Act 4, Scene 1 of the play. So if you want your work featured in a video, send it to info@mrbruff.com, and if we use it in a video, I'll send you 2 free ebooks. This is from Takia and it's a great piece of work. So the extract, as you can see, is Act 4, Scene 1. You've got Portia, Graciano, Shylock in this discussion. You can have a look through that in your own time. And the question was, how far do you think Shakespeare presents Portia as wise? Right about, of course, Portia in the extract, Portia in the play as a whole. So let's get right into the answer. In this extract, Shakespeare presents Portia as confident in her plan to defeat Shylock through her use of repetition. Portia is made to use Shylock's own words against him in order to emphasize how his craving for the law shall be fulfilled. For example, at the beginning of the play, when Antonio agrees to the forfeit of a pound of flesh, these words are repeated by Portia in this extract to ensure Shylock that she is willing to do exactly as thou desirest, except in the process she is exploiting his words, as although they are Shylock's own, he does not realize the manipulation of the words until it is too late. Since the audience would have been unaware that she only reached this idea while asking Shylock for mercy, it would have seemed that Portia was aware of it all along due to the confident tone. Similarly, due to the unhesitating nature of her speech, while it seems Antonio's death is certain, Shakespeare deceives the uninformed audience into being captivated, wondering how Portia could possibly save Antonio as the tension builds. Okay, so to begin with then, this is an analysis of repetition and nicely links to the audience. Remember, exam boards are often frustrated that students write about plays in exactly the same way as they write about novels and poems. So making it clear that you're aware this is something different, this is a work of drama, it has an audience, is always good. I particularly like this paragraph. Shakespeare's use of dedicating to Portia longer sections of dialogue in this extract has the purpose of portraying her to the audience as an intelligent figure when compared to Shylock, as it is clear through his one-line answers he's completely taken aback by her proposition of not shedding a jot of blood. Shakespeare would have intended to use this scene for comedic effect, as both a climax and resolution are reached here. To an Elizabethan audience, the sole fact that the Jew Shylock would have been outsmarted by none other than a female would have been humorous, since in the Elizabethan era females were thought of as inferior. So I like this paragraph because it's I think, a very sophisticated thought about the structure of the text and the way that, who has the most to say. Now, I'm not so keen on the generalization about the Elizabethan era. Females were thought of as inferior. I think we have to be careful with giving these sort of blanket statements that, kind of say this is what everybody thought at the time. But I like the continued thought about the audience, and I like the idea of the climax and the resolution. It's a good part of the answer. It would have also been humorous to this audience that it was Portia who thought of a plan to save Antonio and Bassanio, presenting Portia as being more perceptive than the two of them combined. This comedic effect created by Shakespeare through the character of Portia would have been further maintained, since male actors would typically play female roles, and this means Portia would have been played by a male actor who's presented as a female dressing as a male. Shakespeare's intentions of this could also have been to make the downfall of Shylock more entertaining, or alternatively show opposition to the idea of male dominance by declaring Portia, a female, as brighter than her male counterparts. So this is a good paragraph. I feel like it's underdeveloped a bit, though. There could have been a little bit more about how this is comedic and also about Shakespeare's intentions, but it's not a bad paragraph. It is apparent that Shakespeare intended to show the extent of Portia's intelligence through the execution of her plan and her success in finding the loophole in Shylock's words, but also presents the merciless side of Portia, which, along with her agility of mind, contrasts with the typical qualities that would have been expected of women in the 16th century. For example, in this extract, when Portia offers Shylock to show mercy towards Antonio, it is clear she was giving Shylock the chance to exit with money and dignity, yet when he refuses, she strips him of his Jewish identity and fortunes. To a modern audience, this would seem to be a cruel form of punishment, with Portia being portrayed as compassionless, yet this trait of Portia would have been considerate for an Elizabethan audience due to anti-Semitic beliefs. And this means they would have thought by forcing Shylock to convert to Christianity, Portia would have been assisting Shylock in reaching heaven. So again, just a slight simplification of the context, really. So in Elizabethan times, people were anti-Semitic. Just could have done with being explored a little bit there, just to have a little bit more detail. You know that context is not a great deal of marks, 6 marks here for AQA. So you don't actually want to put context on all the time in each paragraph. But if you're making a point that lends itself well to context, it makes sense to write about it. In the play as a whole, Portia is represented as both witty and entertaining. This is illustrated in Acts 1, Scene 2, when she offers wry comments on suitors that Nerissa suggests. Her satiric dismissal of the suitors introduces Portia as a character of her own, not to be confused as simply Bassanio's love interest. Shakespeare's purpose for this was so later in the play, when she manages to swindle Shylock, it is unsurprising. And this satiric flair is also informed to the audience as she requests in the final scene Bassanio's ring, who begrudgingly agrees to. When she later asks to see the ring, it's unbeknownst to him that it was his own wife who had taken it from him. Shakespeare intended to use this scene to further emphasize the likeable personality of Portia, solidifying the play as a romantic comedy rather than a tragedy. So this is an interesting paragraph because it's the wider text reference. Now, you know, if you've been watching my videos, and please do make sure you're subscribed to the channel, but you know if you don't address both parts of the question, then you are very limited in the marks you can achieve, no higher than the top of band 2. Now, that doesn't mean there has to be equal balance here. And what this student has done is actually had one paragraph that references the rest of the play. There are no quotations in it, but that's okay. There doesn't have to be an equal balance. And referencing a part of the text, so referring to it even without a direct quotation, is okay. Overall, it's clear that Shakespeare intended to depict Portia as a woman ahead of her time. She has qualities which enable her to challenge the male figures around her, which would have been uncommon in the Elizabethan era. It is Portia who is able to single-handedly cause the demise of Shylock and prove herself to be not only heroic, but intelligent. So what did you think of this answer? Put a comment in the comments section, and thank you for watching.